I think the periods in American history that are most conservative politically, that is, the periods that produce the most conservative legislation and the most conservative jurisprudence, are also the periods that produce the most interesting configurations of liberal dissent. And that's a consideration that's shaped my interests in the 19th century in American literature and culture. I'm especially interested in the 1840s and 50s. This is an era of the Texas annexation, of the Fugitive Slave Act, of the Dred Scott decision. And so it's also a period that compelled a number of American literary artists into serious considerations of what it meant to be a dissident, and a dissident who was also a creative artist. There's a moment from Frederick Douglass's 4th of July oration from 1852 that is really instructive to me, I think, because it's so relevant to our current era. Douglass is talking to his audience and noting that before he argues that African Americans should not be enslaved, he needs to first argue that African Americans are people. Okay, so in that context, Douglass says to his audience literally that at times like this, it is not reasoned argument, but scorching sarcasm that is called for. Right, there are these periods where things are so tilted toward the conservative side that one doesn't know where to begin. And I think, by the way, that's a consideration that Stephen Colbert understands very well, that Jon Stewart understands, something I find, as I say, very current. So I'm interested in this period because I think it is a time when public discourse is basically dysfunctional. And there are two figures that come to my mind as I think about that. One is William Lloyd Garrison, who would go up on stage and literally burn copies of the Constitution. Garrison said that at a time when the country was holding slaves, it was incumbent on every intelligent, moral person to reject the Union, to reject the Constitution itself. And he would say that in very compelling ways. Frederick Douglass, on the other hand, had been a slave, after all, and he never stopped believing in the promise of democracy. And I take that very seriously as well. So I'm interested in that tension. I'm interested in figures like Frederick Douglass, like Ralph Waldo Emerson, like Lydia Maria Child, like Henry Thoreau, people who understood that they lived in times of political dysfunction, but who were still working to configure their dissent in ways that still allowed for a connection to the socius, to the polity, to the nation itself.